Welcome to English. Welcome to English 4E Class 30. This is Term 1B. Today we are looking at assignments 36, 37, and as well 38. I'm a little bit worried here. Sorry, sometimes my computer is not syncing these days, so we will see if it's all working today. Okay, so ways to connect. The studio is 1-800-465-7144. The office phone number is 1-800-667-3703, extension 2211. I'm always here for about 45 minutes after this class, so I'm always free to talk. And of course, there's tomorrow. Email jillian.percy@nnec.on.ca. Facebook is capital G, capital P, ERCY, space, capital W, AHSA. Now, if you are reaching out as a friend request on Facebook, please also send me a message because sometimes there's a little glitch where the friend requests don't show up, but weirdly the messages do. So just in case, to be on the safe side, send me a message, even just like, hi, how you doing kind of thing. I have two different channels that you can watch classes on. The first one is the G. Percy Wassa channel. That's the one that has all of my classes from last year and from this year. And then there's the Wassa Distance Education channel, which is the whole school, and that has all the teachers' classes, but only from this year. So they're useful for different purposes. They're definitely the options. If for some reason you don't have access to the internet, contact me. I can always send you the classes directly. That's fine too. All right, how to hand in work. If you need to take a photograph of an assignment, please make sure it's nice and clear so that your writing can be read. Once you've taken the picture, download it onto your phone or computer, save it, and then write me an email and send it as an attachment. Please do not just share it directly as an email. It comes off in very weird sizes and it's extremely hard to print off properly on the paper. Whenever you send in work, always send it to studentwork@nnec.on.ca. You can include me in the email if you want to be safe. Same address as before. When you do this, the secretary can log that you submitted work and it can be retrieved later on. Like sometimes people don't finish the course this year, they take the next year as well, but I can still access your work. So could another teacher if they needed to, and if the teacher for the course changed. Please always include your full name, the course name, the assignment name and number right on the assignment, not just in the email, but on the assignment, because the assignment gets printed off and then put on my desk. I don't necessarily see the original email. If an assignment asks for both a rough and a good draft, please label which one is which and include them both in the same email. I always compare them, and they often have different marking schemes. The actual physical rubric may be different, and one might be worth 10 marks, and the one might be worth 20 marks. If I don't know which one is which, I'm often kind of just guessing, and you might be losing marks for no reason. Okay, we are on week 8. We only have one more week after this. Today we're working on the rest of 36. We're also going to look at 37 and hopefully 38. And then with any luck, tomorrow we'll get on to the culminating activity. So the plan for today is to explore different possible software to create a slide presentation, explore different types of visuals that can be added to a report for a slide, reflect on the creation process and how the different literacy skills work together, examine advertisements for overt and implied messages, and then explore how the same ad may be perceived very differently by different audiences. Okay, so this is just a quick review of what we were working on yesterday because we kind of had to stop. Sort of a two-part thing, so it's kind of longer. The first part of it was creating a report about a daycare. It needs to follow the same outline as the proposal that we read in assignment 32. You have to have $200,000 and you present all this different information on why having a daycare would be a good thing. Now, part B is making a slideshow to go along with it. It does not need to be a long slideshow. All I'm asking for is 5 slides. Each one of the 5 slides should include text, in other words, words, and some sort of graphic or visual. If you already made visuals for your original report, you can use those, that's fine. Here are some examples of possible visuals that you might want to use. Hang on. All right, things like sketches or photos of the design for the daycare, a floor plan or blueprint of the design for the daycare, a photo or diagram of the intended location for the daycare, graphs, charts, tables that show budgetary information, timelines to show the scheduling information. You probably want to include a title slide with the presentation name, your name, and some sort of graphic to go along with it, and maybe pictures and photos of the inside of a daycare. So yesterday we began looking at Google Slides, and we walked through the steps of this. Now, if you are one of our students, you automatically have a Google Google account, whether you've used it or not. If you haven't used it, contact me. I can help you access it. Then once you're used to using that, you go in there, you click on the Google Slides icon, which looks like that little yellow triangle. And once it's open, you'll see the toolbar that you see below, and you'd click on the one that says blank presentation. And then when it comes up, you'll be able to access all sorts of tools to help you create visual slides. So hang on, because there we go. Okay. So here's an example of the possible slides that you could put together. Here I've got slide presentation by Jillian Percy for English 4E Communities to Look Out, and I've just called it my funding portfolio. And I've included a cute little photograph of some kids with a teacher in a daycare center. Okay, so up here, you've got your file, you've got editing functions, you've got different things you can view. The insertion one is the huge one because you can put shapes, text, diagrams, tables, charts. You could even include videos if you were doing this for real. The format just includes line spacing, paragraph spacing, making bullets. You can make new slides, duplicate slides, delete a slide. The arrangement thing is mostly, the only part I really use this for is ordering. Sometimes you're going to put a layer of things and maybe you want like the text on top of the picture instead of behind the picture. And then you would just go to order and tell it what to do. Tools, spelling check, most of the things I don't really use, maybe the dictionary. And I don't really have any extensions that we would use. Okay, so here, maybe you want to add a map of where in the community it might go. It could be a pre-made map, like I got one from Google. Might be a little tiny one that you just sketch out for yourself. It doesn't really matter. Always make sure to explain where you got from your image from. Like if I drew it myself, I would just write self-drawn map. Here I wrote map source from Google, so that it's aware that I didn't draw this, right? It's fine to use a pre-made graphic. You just need to be honest and let me know that's what's happened. And here I just added a little arrow and showed where I think the imaginary new daycare center might be. Here I found a little blueprint of a possible layout for the daycare. This could be hand-drawn. There are all sorts of sources that you can use this one. Again, this isn't mine. I took this from Montessori school, and I just wrote floor plan from, and then I give you the URL so that I could go back and find it. Again, you don't have to draw every single graphic. You just have to make sure you tell me where you got the graphic from, that's all. Here I created a little timeline. Stage 1 was planning, stage 2 is constructing, stage 3 is decorating the interior, stage 4 is training personnel, stage 5 the daycare opens. Here I've assumed that it's going to take us about 4 months essentially to build it. In order to do this, what I did was I click on the insert and then I grabbed diagrams, and here I grabbed timeline, and there's different possible timelines that you can use. I grabbed this one because I liked it, but you could do whatever you like. So that's one possible diagram you can create. Here I made a little graph or chart of how many parents we interviewed and how many children they had of the different ages. Oh, it looks like part of it got cut off. This would say kindergarten from 49 months to 72 months, preschoolers from 31 to 48 months, infants from 6 to 18. It's weird. It showed up on my computer. I'm not sure why it's not showing up here. And anyways, what you would do here, again, same kind of thing, is you go in, insert, and I think I went here and went to the pie chart. Right. Okay, and then when you click on it, it will link up to, I believe it links up to, oh, here we go. And so then you would, okay, if you go up a little top, I thought it was at the top before, you can see, okay. So I want to change the word team 1. I could say infants 6 to 18 months. Looks like I made it too long, but anyways, this is kind of the example of what you do. If I change the numbers, let's say I change this to 5, then it will change the shape of the graph, okay? So I could go in through there and fill all that out and change what I have there. Okay, I'm gonna erase that one now, just kind of show you my original. All right. You could include the budget that you made because you had to do a budget for your report. That'd be a fine thing to include here. I included an infographic that explains why a daycare would be helpful to the children. Again, I didn't make this. This is from the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute. And it talks about all the benefits to the children, the parents, the community, on how early childhood healthcare is, or sorry, early childhood daycare is useful to the community. I also included a picture of a possible playground. Whatever you think is appropriate to add, you're welcome to add. When you want to add pictures, you can just go here to image, upload from the computer. Again, let me know where you're getting it from. There are all sorts of diagrams you can do here. I'm going to pull up the diagrams. You've got grids, flow charts, timelines, process. And again, let's say here, let me go to a new one here. If I wanted to use one, okay, let me say I grab the cycle one. So maybe this is about our funding partners. So the funding partners might be INAC, which I think is called something else right now, but my brain is not remembering what it is. Maybe we are also getting some funding from, say, Kaboom, which helps out for the playground. Let me think here. Maybe we are also getting, maybe the elementary school is donations. So here I might have funding partners. If I don't like the color, I can go through and change the color. Hang on a sec. Yep, see up here. Maybe I decide I want it all red instead, or maybe I want each one to have a different color to make it stand out more. If I didn't like the font that I used, I could change the font up here, make it, oh, sorry, I have to kind of select it. I could make it a more outstanding one. I could make it bigger. I could change the color of it, right? If you haven't done this, it might seem daunting at first, but if you just kind of give yourself permission to play around a little bit, you may find that it's actually not as hard as it looks. And the cool thing is you can end up with really professional looking graphics. And this is the kind of thing that you can absolutely show in like a workplace portfolio, right? Or you can also put it down on your resume. You know, I know how to use Google Slides in order to create presentations. All those kind of things that we're doing for this course are things that we're trying to make sure that you have the skills for your resume and in order to get hired at good jobs. So just spending 20 to 30 minutes playing around with this to make these 5 slides can give you some easy skills. So that's one example of the program you can use. This one is available to everybody. You automatically have access to this if you are one of our students, okay? All right. PowerPoint is also a really strong program. It's been used forever. Not everybody has access to it. If you do, though, it uses much the same type of graphics as we just used now in Google Slides. I wanted to try and link it, but Canva didn't want to let me link. So I'm just going to kind of switch over there now. Hang on a sec. Okay. Now, the nice thing about this is if you go over to the design button, oh, hang on a second. Well, let me do it. Okay, I'm not sure why it's grayed them out. Normally it would have access, maybe because I'm using this with Zoom as well, and I could pick different types of backgrounds. I could also go into this one and it will change the colors. right? I could have a black background with bright red, whatever I feel like. It's the same kind of information. In terms of whether it's better to use PowerPoint versus Google Slides, again, whatever one you have access to, I would use that one. If you've got both, sometimes the fonts available are slightly different. Sometimes the colors might be a little different. Obviously, you can make whatever color you like, but both programs have sort of preset colors that might be a little bit different. Sometimes the type of visuals that you can create using the program can be a little bit different. They all have the same types of visuals, but how you go about creating them and how easy they are to create is a little different. You can insert any type of pre-made photo or drawing into either type of presentation. I do find PowerPoint often has interesting ideas on how to do the layouts for a slide that can be useful, although for some reason when I tried to use that for this, it just kept drawing a blank. But if you wanted to do that, you'd hit design. Yes, it doesn't want to do it right now. Usually there's a little button up here that would say designer, and it would come up and would give you, hey, here's 3 different possible layouts for this slide. That can be kind of fun to use too. And like we talked about, you can use different backgrounds. Besides these kind of fancy, cute things, you can just give it different colors, right? You don't have to get too fancy. Hang on. Okay. It also offers the smart art graphics. I find these a little bit easier to use than the Google slide graphics. It has the same kinds of things. There's lists, there's processes, there's cycles, hierarchies, relationships, matrix, pyramid, pictures, all these kind of fun things, right? Here I made a different type of timeline. Here is a little flow chart that I made. Here's a different kind of pie chart. And again, like I said, all the different photos that I had previously can just as easily be inserted onto PowerPoint. All right, if I wanted to, hang on a second, let me see if I can get one more slide in here. No, it's not letting me do that. Okay, I'll do it on here. Okay, so if I wanted to do this, insert, hang on, where is it? Okay, so it says Smart Art again. It's not letting me access it. I don't know why. But if you clicked on this, it will give you a whole bunch of possible Smart Art items that you can play around with. You can change the colors, you can change the fonts, just like we did with Google Slides, okay? So if you have access to PowerPoint, it's a lovely program. I highly recommend it. It's another great one to use. Okay. And then I was worried that it might not work, so I did put some examples there, but we'll just kind of move on. The last option I want to talk about is Canva. Again, Canva can be used with a free account. I also believe, as far as I understand, I'm able to add students that are to my classes if you want to give this a try. It has most of the same options as Google Slides and PowerPoints. You can make bar charts, pie graphs, other types of graphics. I use Canva to make these presentations. I find it really, really helpful. There's all sorts of pre-made stuff that makes it look super professional. It's also not internet dependent once you've got it finished, so it's all great. Some of the pros and cons of Canva. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can fix this. Pros. It is very professional looking. There's lots of those pre-made presentation templates. They also have lots of photos and cute graphics that are already right in the program that can be used royalty free, so you don't have to hunt them all down. There's a bit of a learning curve though if you're not familiar with it, and I find the text function is not as intuitive or easy to use as other ones. There's also a lot of different download or saving options, which can be a little bit confusing if you're not used to using it. Here's a quick example of some of the pre-made designs, right? These are the cover pages. And again, I can go in and change the colors. I can change the font. I could change the photo. I could change the graphic. It's a bit of work depending on what I'm changing, but it's all very accessible. So here's an example of one business proposal. Okay, it's pre-made. And I'm going to go through and show you how I can easily make a bunch of changes and create a one that's kind of personalized to how I want it. So I decided I didn't like the green. I wanted to make it blue. So I changed the lettering and the banner at the bottom to blue. I didn't want a greenhouse. I wanted a daycare. So I added a daycare photo instead. I still like the idea of transforming spaces and creating dreams. That seemed appropriate. And I didn't like the font, so I changed the font, okay? And again, that's easy enough to do. Just go into there, pick a different font. The only thing sometimes you'll find if it's a weird font, it might overlap and maybe you have to kind of play with it, make it smaller or bigger. That's the only kind of thing. So just kind of quickly show you, and hopefully this will work. So Canva. Okay, now I know I've had problems with this login. Oh, it is going to sign me in. Yay. For some reason yesterday, it did not want to sign me in for the life of me. I don't know why. And you would just see here it says presentation in the orange button. I would click on presentation. It'll give me a blank screen. You can make 4 or 5 slides just by clicking on this little press button down here. And then I can go up to hit design, right? I can even just use the words business proposal, and it will come up with a bunch of templates that I could select from, right? So there's the one I used originally. Here's a nice black one. Here's kind of a funky one with some blue swirls. I'm going to kind of just click on one to show you what I mean. So I can click on this and it'll automatically give it to whatever slide I happen to be on. Then if I click on a blank slide, let's say I want the agenda, okay, but then I don't want the next one or the next one, but I do like this implementation plan, right? This would be perfect for like a little timeline. And then let's see, what else do I want? Maybe I want the benefits and impacts, right? Maybe I want the management team, okay? Now let's say I go in here and I don't like this photo. I think this photo is ugly, yuck. Okay, so if I go over to the little garbage, hang on, it'll say delete image or delete frame. Delete the image. Now, see this kind of blue and green background here? That's just kind of a holding place for a photo. So now if I go over here and I want something that looks like a daycare, and I click on it, the graphics don't work, but the photos will. So I pull up all the photos. These are free to use. They're legitimately able to be used. And I grab some sort of photo. Now, it's kind of floating over here, but if I move it over so that it's kind of sitting on top of the photo, see how it kind of sets itself into the frame? And now I have a beautiful thing that matches. Let's say I don't like this color. That's fine. I go up to the text box. I change the color. I can make it black. I could go into this little rainbow button and turn it whatever color I feel like, right? Slide this along and just change it to whatever color. And as I'm doing it, you can see how over on the main screen, it's changing. So I can see, oh yeah, I kind of like that color better. That's better. Maybe I don't like this green. Hang on. Now, I'm going to show you this is kind of fussy because this looks like it's all one sort of graphic, but it's actually probably 4 or 5 different shapes put together. So if I change this green, which is fine, I'll just make it a yellow here. Okay, so see how these other colors are still existing now. If I want them all to be yellow, I can do that. Or maybe I just want like these 2 sections to be yellow. So there is the kind of possibility that you kind of can have to play around a little bit. But let's say I did this and then I hate it. Okay, that's fine. I just hit the undo button. I didn't like it. It goes back to everything I had before. Okay, this is just holder text. I can go in here, backspace it. I can even just select it and start typing. Here is where I put my own words. Okay, when you're all finished with this, see the share button? I would hit download. I would go to PowerPoint, PPTX, and I would download it. I would save it to my computer, and then I would send it to me in an email. Alternatively, one of the other options you could do is you can copy the link. Now, right now, it says that only I can access it. If I want to add somebody, I would have to like put somebody in here or say anybody with the link can access it. So then if you give me the link in like an email, then I can go in as long as you're comfortable with me doing that, obviously. So that's another option, okay? So that's the other way you can make your slideshow for this presentation. Okay, there we go. All right, so moving on to activity or assignment 37. Okay, so this part we're thinking about the creative process. This is just kind of, we've done this kind of major project. Now we're going to think about it and talk about it. So part A is, how did reading and analyzing the sample business proposal from question 32 help you write your own proposal in question 36? I have here put some lines, my apologies. This was just a little note to myself that in the unit, add some lines there for those people that like to just write right in the unit. And then B, how did the writing that you did to create the business proposal affect or influence the choices you made when you created these slides to go with it? Okay. Now, how do literacy skills work together? There are basically 6 main literacy skills, and they work together to help us communicate with other people. Certain skills are thought of as pairs, with one skill being the receiving or the understanding skill, and the other one being the expressive or the communicating skill, where we get across our thoughts. And those pairs are reading and writing, listening and speaking, viewing media, and creating media. So those kind of pairs are related, but also all the skills that are focusing on receiving are related. So reading, listening, and viewing media are all involve very similar skills because we're trying to understand what someone else is communicating. And they might be communicating it through writing, or they might be communicating it through speaking or through media creation, but we're trying to understand it. And by the same token, all the skills that we use in communicating are related. Because whether I'm writing or speaking or I'm creating media, that all uses very similar skills because I'm still trying to get across my ideas to another person. So there's a lot of overlap and I'm trying to think how to put it, influence from one skill to the other, okay? So heading back here, when you read that sample proposal, how did it help you write it? So reading and writing, those are a pair. How did the two of them work together? And then here, how did writing influence your ability to create the media proposal? These are both communication skills, right? So they're connected too in a different way. So this is just 5 marks. Because I'm saying 5 marks, I would say maybe write, hang on, I would say 4 to 5 sentences, okay? Just kind of talking about your ideas and maybe giving some examples from your proposal or your creation, okay? Just a tiny little sort of a journaly thing on the work we've done, okay? All right, and then moving on to assignment 38. Now, all this stuff here is moving into newer or revised versions of the assignments because there was some stuff that the course didn't cover. So I've had to add a little bit to cover some of the expectations that the government wants us to know, mainly because there's a lot more emphasis on media creation these days than there used to be. And they want to make sure that students have those kind of skills that they need to get good jobs, okay? Okay, hang on a second. Okay, so one more thing we're going to talk about with business is business and advertising. Most businesses do some form of advertising in order to increase sales and reach new customers. In bigger businesses, there are people whose jobs are marketing or public relations who have this as their main responsibility. But in smaller businesses, creating ads, creating posters, and all those kind of things can just be part of the job for different office staff. And just like in the other types of writing that we've studied, advertisements are aimed at a specific audience. Almost all advertisements have persuasion as their main purpose. They're trying to persuade you to buy something. Different businesses may be offering similar services or similar products to buy, but they may be trying to reach a different audience, and their advertisements will usually reflect this in different ways. The other thing to think about is advertisements have 2 different levels of meaning. The first level is the overt or the obvious message. This is the one they're trying to convey to you. It's usually stated directly in the ad copy or words. The second level is their implied message. This message is not stated directly, but it may be figured out by looking at the images and sometimes kind of the hidden Implications of the advertisement's words. The advertiser may not always be aware of their own implied message. Like it may not be a deliberate choice, but more of an unconscious choice that they made when they selected their words or selected the images that they used to sell their product. So for example, on the next page, there is a real ad that a business created, and they didn't intend to, but unintentionally, they created a giant controversy. And I'm going to show the ad and take a moment to think about why do you think this ad caused controversy? So here it says, "Are you Beachbody Ready? The weight loss collection, exclusively available online at proteinworld.com." Basically, it's like a protein powder. Okay. And for those out in the radio world, it's a billboard picture of a girl in a bikini, very thin, and she's standing against a yellow background, and there's great big words that says, "Are you Beachbody Ready?" Okay. Why do you think this upsets some people? Well, the overt message is, hey, summer's coming and we want to lose weight and you want to look great in that bikini so you can go to the beach and feel confident. And this protein powder will help you lose weight, become thinner. But unintentionally, what they implied was if you're not super thin, if you're not super in shape, then maybe you don't deserve to wear a bikini or you don't deserve to go to the beach. And unintentionally, they really offended a lot of people who felt like they were being excluded and implied that, you're not allowed to go swimming unless you look as amazing as this girl. So it caused actually quite a backlash, and eventually the company had to take down their message because they upset so many people. That's what we're talking about, the implied message, right? So question 38, we're going to look at two different ads. And after you've looked them over, we are going to answer the questions that follow. There's kind of a lot of questions. This is kind of a thinking exercise. Study both of the ads. What is the overall purpose of both of these ads? Number 2, describe the graphic for both of these ads. What is the same and what is different about them? Number 3, describe the look, the color, the size, the style of the text in both the ads. Tell me, which look do you like better and explain why? Examine ad A and ad B. Do you think both ads have the same audience? Describe the audience that you think ad A is trying to target. Describe the audience that you think ad B is trying to target. Do you think that ad A does or does not do an effective job of influencing its intended audience to achieve the company's purpose? Identify at least 3 elements of the ad that you think are or are not effective and explain why you think they are or are not. Okay, number 6, what is the overt or directly stated message of ad A? What parts of the ad did you use to determine the directly stated message? B, what are the hidden or implied messages of ad A? And what parts of the ad did you use to determine the indirectly stated or implied message? Question 7, what bias or perspective do you think the company that produced ad A may have about exercise and health? What bias or perspective do they have about what type of people might want to join a gym? And part B, what bias or perspective do you think the company that produced ad B may have about exercise or health? What bias or perspective do they have about what type of people might want to join a gym? And 8, different audiences can have different reactions to the same ad. Imagine 2 different people. One is Fred. Fred is single, he's age 28, he's physically fit, he participates in lots of sports in his spare time. The second person is Martha. Martha is married, she's aged 49, she's out of shape, overweight, uses a cane sometimes, and she's involved in little to no sports activities. Look at ad A. How do you think Fred and Martha might view and respond differently to this ad? Why do you think they might respond differently? So first tell me, what does Fred think? And B, what do you think Martha thinks? This is an opinion, right? There's no real Fred, there's no real Martha, you're just giving me your opinion. Then look at ad B. How do you think Fred and Martha might view and respond differently to ad B? And why do you think they might respond differently? Okay, so now here are the ads. Here is advertisement A, Snap Fitness 24/7, fast, convenient, affordable. No enrollment fees till February 28th, 2023 is kind of an older ad, with new membership. Welcome all new members. Open 24/7 for those on the go. Penn Township, 724-744-7775. And it's got the address and it's got like the little website where you would go. And then advertisement B, we're members, not models. Blink Junction. I think that says, I'm not sure if it's Tesra or I think it's Tesra. Or maybe Jezra. As low as $15 a month. Blink Fitness, everybody happy. Okay. So the graphic, when it's talking in the questions about, talk about the graphic for the ad is just any of the visual elements. It can include photographs, drawings, graphs, maps, logos, shapes, colors, etc., right? So you could describe what it looks like, how you think it's effective, what it draws your attention to, all those kinds of things. Okay. Number 2, how text looks. So the text for the ads is just the words, okay? Just another way of saying words. In an ad, the look of the words is important. Advertisers may draw the audience's attention to certain words through the size or the color or the placement of the words in the ad. Different text fonts can also convey a different feel or atmosphere to an ad. Some fonts may look very businesslike or fancy or quirky or fun, depending on what the advertiser is trying to convey about their business. Here are some examples of different fonts and how the same word can look quite different. So for all of these, the phrase is, we want to help you, okay? Here, we want to help you, right? I don't know, it's very squarish. It's got this kind of extra line. It almost makes me think of movement a little bit, right? I kind of like it as far as that part goes. We want to help you. This looks like writing to me. It looks a little casual. I don't know if I'd want that in an ad myself, but it is one possible font. Here, this is a very fancy font, but in fact, it is so fancy that it's a little bit hard to read. If I just change that a little bit, hang on, I could probably make it a little easier to read. Let's see, how about this? Okay, not as pretty, but hang on, but it is easier to read, okay? Something to think about when you're doing ads. Obviously, you don't want the words to be unable to read. Here, this kind of looks like an old-fashioned stencil. Also makes me think of the army a little bit. I don't know how it would suit a gym ad necessarily. This one's a funny one. It looks like kind of either smeared or like motion, like somebody was writing it and then the paint smeared, or almost like what you might see on the side of a bus if it's moving fast. And here's this strange font. It's kind of all a little bit of a mishmash. This is interesting. I don't know if I'd want it for a business necessarily. So this is what I'm talking about, where in terms of different fonts can give you a different feel. So when you're looking at these two ads and it's talking about the text, how does these fonts, how is it similar or different from the fonts here, right? And if you take a look, they aren't all the same font. Like how Snap and Fitness doesn't look exactly the same as this, and doesn't look exactly the same as this. Same here, this font up here isn't the same as down here. So you can talk about the different fonts and what kind of feel they have to them, okay? Then purpose and audience. We kind of were talking about purpose. The purpose of any type of advertising is to persuade you to buy their products. That's the main purpose. It's why businesses spend so much money on advertising, is because they want to get their money back, right? In the case of these gym ads, they want you to join the gym, and there might be an annual fee or a monthly fee. The audience for each type of advertiser might be quite different. advertisers will happily take money from anyone. But whenever they're designing a product or a service and they go to advertise it, they often have in their minds kind of a specific ideal customer or audience who they think will like this service or product or be interested in purchasing it. So when you're looking at questions 4 and 5, those are both talking about audience. In advertiser terms, the audience is usually described in different ways. They usually look at several different things. They target gender, age, race, interests, lifestyle, and income, right? And they will often, like, if you're, worked in advertising, they might say, right, our ideal customer is a woman from 20 to 45, who is interested in fitness, but wants support. She makes at least, let me see here, 50,000 to 75,000. Let me think. She is interested in trying out different classes and might use a personal trainer. She may have kids and would benefit from an in-gym daycare support. Okay. So this is one example of how they describe their ideal customer. Some might say we want women and men. Some might say they're looking for younger men. Some might be they're only dealing with professional athletes. Sometimes if the gym is really pricey, they may be looking for people who make a lot more money. But no matter what, advertisers generally have a really strong idea of who they're trying to target. And it sounds kind of funny because it's like, well, why are they limiting themselves? Why not just market to anyone? The problem is when you're marketing to anyone, it's so wide open, it doesn't kind of give you enough to work on. So, I mean, someone who makes less than that might still join this gym. Someone who makes more than that might still join this gym, right? Maybe they don't care about different classes. Maybe they just want to do cardio, 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 and that's fine. But this just kind of gives them an idea of what they should offer and what might be enticing or persuasive to have in their ad that might convince people to join out. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about. When we're talking about audience, that's the kind of thing I'm looking for, okay? Now, we talked a little bit about overt messages versus implied messages. Here is another example. Again, for those out in Radio Land, what we have here is a print ad for makeup, Alamy makeup. It's a black background, and there is a fair-skinned woman. You can see about, I don't know, maybe a quarter of her face. You got a close-up of her eye, her lips, her ears. And the big text says, build your confidence on a sound foundation. There's a lot of little text that's actually kind of too blurred to read. And then there's a tiny little picture that shows some of the different products they offer. So now the overt message, that's what they're trying to tell you. The overt message here is that the foundation, the makeup that they sell, is going to give you confidence, right? Everyone wants to be confident. This is an awesome message. However, whenever you're looking at the overt message, you also want to look at what's the implied message about here. Well, the implied message is that you might need to wear makeup in order to have confidence. Like your bare face might not be enough to give you confidence. It might also kind of imply that you need to look as beautiful as this model in order to have confidence, right? If you don't look as young as her, if you don't look as beautiful as her, if you don't have the same color of skin, all those kind of things can be a little bit of an implied message, and that advertisers aren't always aware of those implied messages, but often the consumer or the customer notices it, sometimes on a conscious basis, sometimes on an unconscious basis. So these days, I think advertisers are trying to be more aware of the unintentional messages they may be sending. but it's still something to be mindful of whenever you're looking at ads and thinking about what are they trying to sell and what are the assumptions behind how they view their customer. Okay. What is bias or perspective? Some of the questions talk about bias. Bias basically implies that you have a strong opinion on an issue. Sometimes people feel that bias means it's automatically an unfair or an unreasonable opinion, but that's not necessarily the case. We almost all have a certain bias or a certain perspective on almost anything, really. We're alive. It's almost impossible for us not to have opinions on things, right? The big thing is sometimes we're aware of our opinions and aware of those bias. Sometimes we're not really aware. And that is where the problems can sometimes come in. So let's say you look out at your sidewalk one morning after it snowed, and only a small amount of snow has fallen, maybe 1 or 2 inches. And you're looking at it, it's nice and warm in your house, it's super cold outside, and you're debating, do I shovel it or not? And you decide it's gonna be fine. There's not very much there, it's a small amount, it's not gonna impede anybody walking along. However, your next door neighbor, who's got a mom in a wheelchair and a dad who uses a cane, they might be looking out the window at that exact same snowfall and they think, oh my gosh, that's a fall risk. And they go right out and shovel that snow all the way down to the cement because they know it's hard for a wheelchair to get through the snow. And they know that it can be very slippery for somebody using a cane to get through the snow. So they have a very different bias or perspective on it because they have different people in their life. So the first person isn't deliberately trying to be difficult. They just weren't thinking about some of the other people who might be using the sidewalk. And that's the kind of thing we're talking about when we're talking about these ads, where it's not necessarily a deliberate attempt to exclude people. It's just that if you don't necessarily have the same point of view, you may not see how what you're saying or what you're doing or what images you're using may affect other people's feelings or opinions about themselves and about your product. Okay. Some common areas of bias, uh, the basic ones are things that we're born with. Certain characteristics like gender, race, skin color, our looks, right? Being tall, being short, being thin, being heavy. We can have a very hard time imagining what it would be like to be born in a different body, right? There's endless jokes about the differences and misunderstandings between men and women, right? And part of that is just because there's the inability to, you can't just kind of switch and see, how does it feel for a day, right? Same thing, I can't suddenly become short to see what the world is like from a short person's perspective. We're also born in different regions of the country with different landforms, different foods, different availability of things. Our parents are different, certain different languages, different nationalities. Someone who's grown up in farm country may have a very hard time imagining the types of issues that people might face in a crowded city like New York. By the same token, people who live in a hot desert may have certain kind of issues that are very different than the issues that we face up here in Northwestern Ontario. And all these kinds of differences based on birth, our bodies, where we were born, where we live, our parentage, our heritage, they all affect how we view and how we interact with the world. And they give us a certain bias or perspective. And that bias can affect our writing. And since we are humans and we create advertising, it can affect the type of advertising we create. Unintentionally, uh, because we're aiming at a certain type of audience, right? And again, we're using generalizations, which means unintentionally, we may end up thinking in stereotypes. And it may be offensive or off-putting and maybe quite frankly wrong. So when you're looking at these two different gym ads, what kind of bias or perspective do you see that the advertiser or the gym had about who might want to use a gym? And I'm going to kind of go back to those real quick. I know we're running out of time, but hang on a second. Here's the one ad. And here is the second ad. Now, here's the thing. And I'm not going to talk too much about this, but if you had certain issues or certain kinds of difficulties, you might choose one of these gyms over the other because to me, it looks like one of these gyms is thinking about more different types of people than others, right? And by that, by thinking that way, they may have more services that are available to me than the other gym might. Now, it's possible that the other gym also has all those same services. It's possible. However, if that's the case, why aren't they showing that in their ad? And that's where we're talking about that unconscious bias, where they maybe aren't thinking about it. On the other hand, it may be just a real reflection of what they actually offer, right? They may just offer very different services. So those are things to think about when you're answering these questions. If you're not sure on how to do this, or you have any questions about this, by all means, contact me and I'd be happy to talk to you about it. Tomorrow we have the last class for this week, and then next week is the very last week for this course. All right, I hope you have a good night. And like I said, feel free to call me and talk about the assignments.